gosh, look at the crowd.
Come this way.
Those who spread goodness radiate happiness to everyone around them. Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Welcome to LMDtv. I'm Ashwini Vethakan. Joining us this week on Talking Business is the co-founder and chairman for Scybers, Madu Ratnayake. Welcome to the show, Madu. It's good to have you here with us.
Glad to be here, Ashwini.
Now, Madu, with the recently enacted and endorsed Personal Data Protection Act, could you briefly outline what this would mean for organizations and individuals?
Yeah, I think we are seeing progress in the data protection side. If I just give you a little bit of background, right, and why are we doing this is because more things are going digital and more information, especially about identity of citizens, are being collected by different parties, right? And as digital identities and digital footprints become more critical for citizens, it's important that we have a good data protection regulation and laws to protect the citizens. So that's really the genesis of it, right? And if we are a company who is collecting data about people, especially personally identifiable information, what's known as PII, that you need to make sure that you have put in the right controls and protection in place that they don't get compromised or they only get used for the reason that you are collecting them for, right? And what it means with the data privacy regulation means that if you are not, that you'll be legally liable to fines and other legal ramifications if you don't protect that data. So I think there will be a period of grace that companies have to quickly adapt and build their practices. But it's important is to get started quickly and make sure that whatever the data protection schemes that you have in your company is stepped up to the level that is required from the Data Privacy Act. I believe it'll overall increase the maturity of the digital program in the country, as well as it creates more avenue for us to go more digital because the data can be protected and for the citizens can be more comfortable in engaging more digital ways with the business. So overall, it'll boost the digital adoption, I believe.
And what are the top IT trends Sri Lanka should take note of in 2022?
Yeah, there are a couple of things I guess we should really take note of. One, from a digital and IT industry perspective or digital economy perspective, there is a massive acceleration in digital all around the world, as we've seen in Sri Lanka, especially the last couple of years. So the pandemic has certainly accelerated a lot of that digital adoption, whether you think about going to a bank or looking at entertainment or looking at your retail shopping. Many of these things are now going digital because everybody hadn't gotten used to doing things digitally during the pandemic period, right? And that trend is here to continue. And so that's one big trend that we should adopt, going digital. And as a IT industry, that means there's a lot more opportunities that comes in the ways for companies and individuals to be able to take part in building these solutions and technologies. So this gives a great push for growth of the IT industry in the country. That's the second one, I believe. I think the third trend is really the talent. There is a couple of things going on. One, a lot more companies are now open to remote work. As a result, where you are doesn't really matter. Now, if you're previously, generally you have to go to the country to work in that country if you're moving. Now with a lot of technology and platforms being out there, people can work for any country, anywhere in the world, right? And most progressive companies are already started to hire people from around the world. So that will really create another new dynamic for talent, and that our people will work in global companies. And at the same time, the third thing is really the uprise of this whole gig work or freelance work, that people will be doing more gigs as opposed to getting into full-time work. They might do a gig in certain company for a couple of weeks and then move into another company and work on a gig for a couple of weeks. So these will change the way that people work. So we'll have to adapt. Companies have to adapt, and the people have to adapt to really the changing dynamics of this.
According to the World Bank, one of Sri Lanka's priorities is transforming into a technology-based society. In your opinion, how advanced is the digital infrastructure of the country to support this?
Yeah, it's I think Sri Lanka going into becoming a more digital economy, digital country. It's definitely happening, and we are rapidly progressing that direction. And to your point, infrastructure makes a huge difference in that journey. How fast we will go. If I look at some of the key infrastructure you required, firstly, I think one of the fundamental infrastructure is connectivity, right? Our connectivity to the rest of the world through our submarine and satellite connectivity. I think we have a fairly good and decent connectivity out of the country. And within the country also, we have a fairly good network. So I think from a connectivity perspective, and we are right now experimenting with 5G, high-speed connectivity. So I think the network infrastructure is good and is catching up and getting better, right? And I think with the new satellite connectivity and things like that, it'll even get better. I think we are good on that. The second is really having the right legal infrastructure, whether it's a data privacy or cybersecurity or data protection, and those legislative infrastructure is over the years has been also maturing and coming up. And as we just discussed, Data Privacy Act is now in place. So I think the legislative framework or infrastructure is also coming up, and I think that really increased our ability to accelerate, right? And the other thing is really around the skills and talent. I think there's a lot of work has to be done there. While we have grown quite a bit, I think what is required in the future is significantly higher. So we'll have to double down on improving the talent side, right? I think these are the things I think we need to get right to really accelerate our journey into becoming a more digital economy.
And on that note, we'll be going in for a short break.
You love the feeling of being renewed. To stay beautiful every single day. To breathe just like we do. Because you are truly delicate. Protecting the ones who've been with us through the years. With Sayalak Care, the only wood coating that truly protects you. Sayalak Wood Coatings from Jat.
Welcome back as we continue our conversation with the co-founder and chairman of Scybers, Madu Ratnayake. Now, Madu, a recent study by Stanford University revealed that over 1 in 4 respondents said that they had fallen for a phishing scam at work in the last 12 months, out of which 32% complied with the request made. In your opinion, what are the best practices to adopt in terms of cybersecurity risk management?
Yeah, I think that's a very important area to focus on as the country moves forward. Let me give you a little bit of background around what are the risks first, right? And I think one of the fundamental risks is really about the cyber crimes and cyber attacks. In the past couple of years, in our region, Asian region alone, this has increased 600%, right? So that's a massive increase in cyber risks and threats and attacks. So that creates a lot more things that we are trying to take digital very vulnerable. That's number one. Number two is regulation. As we spoke earlier, around the world, especially in Asia, regulation is catching up very fast. Regulators are tightening their force. So the companies have to really make sure that you step up to that requirement. So that's the second challenge most companies have. And the third one is lack of skills, right? And there is certainly lack of cybersecurity people to really address the demand, right? And this year alone, there's a worldwide shortage of about 2.5 million people, and by 2025 it'll be around 3.5 million people shortage. So there is a huge talent shortage. That's the other thing that companies will grapple with. And the fourth and the final challenge is still, this is not completely aligned with the boardroom and the technology people, right? It's still not treated as a proper issue, and there's not enough attention at the boardroom level to address cybersecurity as a business issue. So what companies needs to do, number one, is to really make sure you take cyber risk as a business risk, because this is one of the risks. If you are a digital business like a bank or any other e-commerce or any other industry, you can wipe your business overnight, and no other risk will have that same level of impact. So firstly, to understand and make sure that you have the right focus in place, at starting from the boardroom to the executive team. That's number one, I think. Number two, having the right security focus in the company and giving those guys a seat at the table so you can have a conversation around what needs to get done and provide funding and provide the required focus to be able to get done. And third, it's not something that one or two people can do in a company, right? The data is everywhere in the company. So it has to be in part of your culture and part of your organization's fabric of working. So it's very crucial that it's taken as a enterprise-wide view, so that everybody take part in that. Because your weakest link could be one person who is clicking on the wrong link or opening up something either intentionally or inadvertently, right? So it's very important that you treat this as an enterprise-wide issue and take everybody with you as you try to protect the business. So these are three things I would say very important to get started putting a good cyber practice in your company.
Our final question for this evening, Madu, and coming back to human talent, what initiatives must be taken to bridge the skill gap among local tech talent?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's one of the most critical challenges I think we have, rapidly skilling up. So I think the first obvious one is to really make sure we double down on our campus and university programs and make sure we continue to build more talent and improve that capacity in our universities. We still have a fair number of gap between the people who are qualified to get into a university and actually the number of seats that we have in a university is both private and public combined, right? So we have a lot of ways to go to improve that, and we should continue to do that. Good news is that there are, most universities are doing that. They're increasing every year, little by little, but I think we need to have a more focus and a more aggressive plan to grow, right? That's number one. Second is, I think we should also start looking at global talent pools and to address some of the talent shortages, especially now in the digital side. It's easier to do, right? Just like what apparel industry has gone into other areas of the world, digital talent can also be now accessed from anywhere in the world. Especially you're an enterprise, Sri Lankan enterprise, you can get talent globally, and we should get better at taking talent around the globe, right? And like many companies are doing. The third is that you have to also build talent in non-standard ways, not a typical degree, but there's a lot of vocational ways of doing that, either through internships or mentorships that we can bring talent in. And those people can get trained through a lot of the online mediums that we have. There's a great number of platforms out there now, whether if you want to learn a skill, it's very easy for you to go and access that content, right? So vocational focus and not necessarily having to go through 3 to 4 years of study before you can get into workforce. You can start with doing some of the vocational qualifications, global ones, and then get into workforce. So that's another area that we should accelerate and to really bring to address the talent gap that we have.
Well, this has been an interesting conversation. Thank you for joining us on the show this evening, Madu.
Great, thanks for having me.
Coming up, we have the latest updates from Sri Lanka's economy. Stay tuned. Welcome back and hear the latest updates from Sri Lanka's economy. Corporates continue to view the economy in an extremely pessimistic light, and indeed the April LMD Nielsen IQ Business Confidence Index or BCI survey puts things into perspective. A massive majority of 87% of poll respondents now expect the national economy to worsen further, which is 2 percentage points higher than in the previous month. As far as comparisons go, the level of economic pessimism stood at 55% 6 months ago. And as for survey participants who express optimism, a mere 3%, as in March, say the economy will improve in the coming 12 months, while 10% believe it will stay the same during this time, from 12% in the preceding month. Sales volumes for whatever is left of business prospects, expectations continue to be muted. To this end, 62% from roughly 2/3 of respondents a month ago expect their sales volumes to get better in the 12 months ahead. This compares unfavorably with what corporate executives said in December, when 86% of business people who spoke to the pollsters expected their sales volumes to improve. As in the 2 preceding months, however, there's good news in the latest report on how businesses have performed since this time last year. Nearly 6 in 10 survey respondents from March at 65% revealed that their sales volumes have increased compared to a year ago. In contrast, only 36% said so in January. Given the backdrop of multiple crises affecting the nation and its people, the short term sees a notable downgrade in the outlook for the next 3 months. This is the lowest to which perceptions about near-term prospects have been this year. There's more bad news on the investment front too. In the last month's eye-opening majority of 92% of business people who deem it to be poor or very poor has blown out to 97%, whereas 87% of the survey sample perceived the investment climate as being good or fair in March. The count a month later has plummeted to merely 3%. Thankfully, a healthy 87% of poll respondents versus 94% last month say their businesses will maintain existing staff numbers, while only 8% expect to shed human resources in the coming 6 months. However, the proportion of corporates that say they plan to increase staff numbers has reduced from 10% to a mere 5% in the last 6 months. And that's all the time we have for you this week. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.